All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co-host,
Dominic Castillo.
All right, so another surprise. Because we ended off on an unexpected note last episode, I guess you could say, where we didn't really wrap up properly, but a surprise, we're back here again. This is the fourth upload this week.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because I had my episodes with Mr. Solis.
Right.
We recorded on Wednesday. I recorded yesterday, and here we are again. Busy week, but that just kind of goes to show how much we have to talk about. As you saw on Wednesday when we recorded, that was kind of a spontaneous discussion and topic where, Dom brought it up and it ended up taking up the whole episode.
True.
But it was still pretty good because we got some really good discussion. And as you can tell, as we got towards the end, there was still more to be said. Like, I believe, I forget what exactly you were wrapping up about on Dom, where I was like, I don't mean to cut you off, but we got like 15 seconds.
I think I was just mentioning the state. We were talking about, what was it? The video game stuff and stuff. What was it? I think it was about single player.
Yeah.
And multiplayer. And I only just wanted to mention, continue off that, that even at times single player games, even if they're crafted perfect, I guess, are never, how would you say, they're not always perfect. Like, for example, Watch Dogs Legion. It's basically the third spin-off of the two Watch Dogs that came out, based in the UK. But no one played it to the point where Ubisoft themselves had to, address the concerns and just, I think in a Twitter post they just said that they had to pull the plug on the game, so that they're no longer supporting it anymore. Like, for updates and stuff like that, because, no one was playing it, but it was, greatly hyped. And marketing, of the but it's dead now, literally.
Yeah, and another, well, not really similar, but to kind of show that games aren't always perfect. When the SpongeBob remastered game came out of Battle for Bikini Bottom,
right?
It had errors on day one of release, like a lot of games do. But to kind of show the difference between tuning and updating bugs in a single player game versus a multiplayer, it got a day one fix, whereas multiplayer games kind of take weeks at a time, especially because, as you mentioned in the previous episode, it requires maintenance shutdowns, and that means shutting down the servers, meaning people can't play your game.
True.
And you have to take that risk of the hype dying down when you have to stop your game even though it's in its first week of release to fix bugs.
True.
And then another thing, we kind of touched on it, but the whole thing about delays of releases and stuff, I forgot to bring it up. My dad talked about it, and I forgot to bring it up too. When the PS4 came out, as I always say, the reason I ended up getting one was because my dad was convinced when they showed, PS4 exclusive is going to be the Final Fantasy VII remaster.
Uh-huh.
And then it takes all those years to release, and then it finally releases, and what happens? It releases partially on PS4, and if you want to finish the rest, you have to get the PS5 and play it.
Interesting.
That was an actual thing, so it was that was a bit frustrating to him to see a game delayed for so long, and then when he finally gets to play it, he doesn't even get to play the full thing, because by the time they released it, the next console came out, and boom, now you need the next one to get it, even though the sole purpose of getting the PS4 was to play that game.
Jeez.
But man, it's pretty
wouldn't that gather more controversy and stuff like that? Because I don't think I've ever heard of this.
That's the funny part, is people, again, going back to our discussion of video games, people just let the big company Sony and freaking Square Enix just get away with that like it was no problem.
Man, I mean, how would you say it? I think we should really just stop letting them get away with this. What's even worse is that with the current state of the world and the availability of PS5, not everyone can afford one or get one in its entirety because people are scalping. But to like lock the rest of the game through a whole entire generational console, that's I've never heard of that. I'll be honest, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it was baffling, and it's just one of those cases of people just letting these companies get away with whatever they want because of their name brand. Real sad to see. But aside from that, because or is there any more on that topic that comes to mind for you, Dom?
Or nothing much else. I guess there's more news that came out for Battlefield 2042. I think EA has recently put out a statement that they're just gonna simply let the game die, and they're not gonna want to like revive it anymore, and they're just gonna have a skeleton crew. In which a skeleton crew is like just like the bare minimum of developers and artists and stuff like that doing concept art for the game, or just for the updates and stuff like that. So
Damn.
I think they're just gonna let the game die. Considering this is a AAA developer game, and it's already gonna die. I think before even the second quarter, which is which is kind of crazy to think about considering this is an EA game. And considering how fast this game died off, considering it is carrying the Battlefield name with all the marketing and all that stuff that was, implemented before the game came out, just for the game to topple over and get destroyed, now leaving just to a bare minimum of developers just to keep the game, to keep the server just upheld just for a little bit longer until I would assume that EA is going to eventually pull the plug on the game just for it to die and no one's going to be playing anymore. And I think that's honestly pretty depressing. Also, one more thing. Do you know, Jack, about like the yearly and the quarterly sales revenue that like the EA publishes online?
Oh, I didn't
to the public.
I didn't know they actually publish that stuff.
Yeah, they do, and I believe, if I remember, in their conference calls.
Mm-hmm.
And in the reference sales that they put out, towards investors, because they have to do that every quarter to point out that they are making revenue off their games. Out of all the games that EA has made, Battlefield 24 was not mentioned at all, and they had to refer back to Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1, a game that came out like 6 years ago now, and they had to put those games under the references just for the investors to see that okay. People are, obviously we're making money because people like Battlefield 5, considering that was a game that came out, a couple years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
And they not once mentioned 2042, which is basically, the flagship game for EA for last year. That's crazy considering how fast they pulled the plug on 2042, considering that was meant to be the flagship game for the upcoming, next 2 to 3 years. And here we are now. 2042 is just left in the dust. It's crazy. It's depressing to think about. But yeah, that's all I got for this topic.
Man, that's crazy to hear just how much of a downfall that game had. But that just kind of goes to show, because at launch, it was pretty cool and all, but I can't even really think what was exactly the issue other than they just, kind of stopped putting effort into it after the first month.
I think it was mostly the bugs, but also the way the game was portrayed. Because Battlefield is supposed to be this horrible setting in which people are killing each other, and it's war, modern war. But I think the characters seem too childish, with emotes and with dancing and the quote lines sound too I guess childish per se. I think there's a whole video on it, but what was it? I think they also have the specialist system now,
Oh
kind of
yeah.
like with Rainbow, kind of like that. And people really hated that because they don't want that. They just want the regular class system of like assault, support, medic, and sniper. It's been like that for like the entire like 6, 7, 8 years of Battlefield. But they went now for specialists, and no one likes that.
Yeah, and plus, like,
Yeah.
based off the trailer, you can tell like a lot of things were implied or promised, and like a lot of those things just didn't end up really being implemented. If you want to say, like, I know like the weather effects were supposed to happen, like like this like crazy like weather effects were supposed to happen, and yet playing the game it never really happened. Like you would see a tornado in the distance, and then the match would end before it even got close.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, exactly.
But so real, kind of real shame that that's all happening to Battlefield. But at the same time, that's what they kind of get for not properly preparing. Because that's almost similar to, you remember Cyberpunk when it dropped and it had all those bugs and like it had all that hype and then just kind of died down because of the fact that they just had way too many bugs at the start.
True.
And that one was a lot crazy to me because it was such a hyped game and had all these years, and then it drops and the release was just like a complete, like, it just really blew up in their face because everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. It had all those bugs. It was the fact that people couldn't even play the game, like that their consoles couldn't handle it. It was pretty crazy to see unfold like live on social media, all the reactions and stuff.
Cool. Man, I think the game now. I think Cyberpunk now is okay. I think there's been a bunch of updates and stuff like that, and like mod support too. But I don't think it's gonna get like the what was it? No Man's Sky type of like revival. If you catch my drift. I think it's just gonna be supported for now, and it's gonna be fixed. But I don't think there's gonna be like a huge player turnaround where everyone starts playing it again, and congratulating their efforts to like fix all the issues. But not on top of that, also add new content, because I don't think Cyberpunk is gonna do that at the moment. They were supposed to be releasing like a PS5 version of the game last year, and here we are now, and no PS5 version of the game exists. There's still a bunch of bug fixes for Cyberpunk, and I think there was meant to be like DLCs coming out last year as well, and not a single piece of DLC has came out yet, except for like one small bit, but that's just like for clothes and a skin for a car, not a new car, just a skin for a car.
Crazy. And speaking of social media reactions, our friend Gio, who was with us on Wednesday, he proposed a question to the two of us about today's topic, and he had asked, had we seen anyone's like what was the general consensus online about this album? And I think both you and I said, I don't think we've seen anything about this album, like anyone talking about it, which is crazy to think when you see who the artist is.
True.
So today's topic, doing another music review, we're reviewing Post Malone's latest album, 12 Carat Toothache. Now, obviously, this is Post Malone's fourth album. He's a pretty big name, I guess you could say now, especially, off his previous records and certain singles that popped off, He's a pretty big name, kind of, would you say genre bends? I mean, you can mainly classify him as pop now for sure, huh?
True, yeah, but based off the recent music and especially with what he had, what was it? He made Circles, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not stupid. He made Circles.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. I'm assuming. I hope to God I'm not wrong. But yeah, the recent music he's been making has been very pop-ish per se.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like he's definitely gone to this sort of pop-ish sort of vibe with his music. But not only that, but trying to like I guess portray messages within each song as much as he can, or at least like messages from his personal life and what he's dealing with.
Yeah,
That's what I assume.
that's definitely what's on a lot of this album. But first off, going back to the what I brought up, it dropped last week, and I'm not lying to you, Dom. With from last week to now, this is a week later, I have not seen a single person talking about it. Have you?
I've seen Anthony Fantano. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it.
Yeah, I saw his review as well, but I literally usually when albums drop, especially from like big names, it's like you see people talking about it the night of on social media. I don't know what it was. I just didn't see anyone talking about it. And some people were saying that's likely due to like the lack of promotion, but I don't know how much we can say that because like look at how many albums this year have had such a quote unquote lack of promotion, and yet they still get talked about. Like Kendrick Lamar announced his album like 2 weeks before it dropped. The Weeknd announced his album literally like a couple days before it dropped. I didn't at all see a lot of promotion for Denzel Curry's album. These are just the ones we've reviewed so far, and it's like each of those three projects, they were both on limited like promotion, and yet they were still kind of getting talked about for the most part on social. So like I'm wondering if it's just a thing of, we weren't hearing in the right areas, or we weren't in the right areas to hear about it. But like that was just something that caught like my attention, was the fact that like not a lot of people were talking about it. And like I said, Post Malone's made a name for himself in the music industry, so it's a surprise to see a big name like him not getting talked about.
Yeah, you got a point there. I think I'll be honest. I'm not sure why. Considering what was the last time he made an album? Back in 2-3 years ago.
I think it was 2019. I will double check because his album, it was Hollywood's Bleeding. That was his last release, and that was back in 2019. Yes.
2019. Okay, a good 3 years ago. Considering like the amount of time people have within albums, and considering it's Post Malone, and I'm assuming he can afford marketing. Like kind of wish. I mean, if I was him, I would definitely try to like put this out there more in terms of like social media stuff. Maybe even like online, not ads, but like you know what I mean. Like more, I guess, influence on, I guess, the existence of the album that's going to be coming out soon. During the time. Yeah,
it's funny you bring that up because think about it. Think about years prior, the way people have promoted their music. You see billboards all over the big cities like New York and LA and Chicago and stuff, Atlanta. You see them have all these ads on YouTube being like, oh, check out my latest single, check out my album coming out on this day. You see promoted posts on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, everywhere. Yet in the past couple years, we haven't seen any of that. Like, think about it. When was the last time you saw someone promoting their album through billboards? And, obviously because the pandemic was happening, you assume, like, the past, 2 years, it's because of the fact that, people weren't really going out, so they wouldn't even see it. But then, you would expect them to start promoting on social media at that point, putting it all over the place, wherever they can. And even then, you weren't really seeing anything. Like you bringing that up just brought that to my mind. I'm just like, it's been so long since I've seen people promote their albums, and especially in a prolonged way to get that hype built up, like putting posters out, putting ads out and stuff.
True. I mean, I think the only exception is just Tyler the Creator. When he had his Call Me If You Get Lost, he literally posted a phone number you could call. Yeah. But aside from him, no one else. I've seen nobody else place posters, billboards, online ads, or I guess YouTube ads as well. No, they just expect, considering their fan base, just based off their social media posts, and that's it, to have it as their I guess way of just throwing it out there that my album's coming out soon. take a listen to it.
Yeah, like a lot of them just kind of announce it like I said, like the week before or so, and then it's like, like think about it. We were like, oh, Kendrick's gonna like reach these numbers, and then because of like how limited promotion it got, and then plus how we kind of talked about it wasn't the most like basically kind of like radio friendly album, if that makes sense, or like it wasn't one that had like songs that people would be streaming like that, like it probably was an
Yeah.
album that a lot of people just did one listen to it and that was it, you know but like they just have like this week, like they do it a week before. They're like, oh, here's my new album, like you said, go check it out, like because they expect the fans to already do it. And you know I like what Gio put here. He's asking, is it an ego thing? What do you think, Dom? Is it a thing of because they've already built up such a popular fan base, made all this money, that like they just kind of expect, the fan base to already like, go listen, in a sense, without having to hype things up much?
I would say yeah, kind of. It depends mostly on each rapper and each artist and each musician overall. I'm not sure how to explain it because for like let's say in Post Malone situation, I'm gonna make assumptions here, but I'm assuming that he was considering that since he himself believes he might, he does, or he might believe that he does have a huge fan base, not having to, market and stuff like that, it wouldn't matter because he knows that he's going to get huge numbers regardless of what he does in terms of marketing, if that makes sense. But how would you say it? I'm not sure how to explain it. I'll be honest with you. It does feel like it's going to be in terms of an ego thing when it comes to artists before they release them albums. I think it is a bit of an ego thing because they might think, oh yeah, I have a huge fan base. Of course they're going to listen to my album as soon as it releases. They don't need any marketing because they know I'm going to release it at this point in time.
Yeah,
but for some others, my bad. But for some others, the simplicity of not having to release an album and just like throwing it out there surprisingly might catch people off guard, which I guess in it of itself does create a sort of word of mouth spread, which in itself is, I guess, the advertisement per se. But that's just what I think. That's what I think.
Yeah, and to kind of tie into that, you look at Post's last two albums, Hollywood Bleeding and Beer Bongs and Bentleys. I don't know how accurate the stuff I'm looking at is, but it says like, both albums sold over 450K first week. So you kind of look at that and you're like, if it sells that much first week, the past two albums, of course, like you were saying, some of them will just expect the fan base to be there and listen without much promotion and stuff like that.
Right.
Because, I don't know, because we've seen it with Kendrick Lamar too. Like we brought up the sales, and then like this album is only expected for Post to sell like anywhere between 150 and 130K. That's a 300K drop from his last two albums, and we've seen this with so many artists where their sales are just dropping. It's kind of confusing, but apparently what I've heard is that the sales, like that I think it's Billboard, or I forget what it is, like the RIAA, I think it is. It's like they changed up the way sales are recorded and stuff like that, and then plus people aren't buying physical copies, so that doesn't add to the sales anymore, for the most part. Like not as many people are buying physicals like CDs and stuff. Some people buy the vinyls, but that's if they even come out with the vinyls, and I don't know if that counts towards the album sales anymore.
Right.
But it's just kind of interesting to see just like this decline in promotion, and like you brought up Tyler, Creator. I know Travis Scott has put up like billboards to like hype up his latest album, and I actually saw one when we were driving from California to Arizona during my trip. But like
Right.
that's an album that all we have is the name, and even that might not be confirmed.
Interesting.
But like that's as far as the promotion that I've seen.
Right.
Gio, do you want to speak with what you were gonna say?
Yeah, I just didn't know when to come in. Going back to like the whole ego thing, I think that applies to like the majority of artists these days. But in the case for Post Malone, I know that he took like a very long hiatus from social media, and I think that's just like he's still continuing that even with his music. So like I don't know how to explain it, because it's kind of like you do something for so long that it becomes habit. So when he was going to release his like album, he didn't want to bring more attention to it or to his life through social media than he was getting before. I don't know. Did that make sense? I don't even know. That's just what I was thinking.
I think it makes sense, especially looking at like the context of this album, because as Dom mentioned, this album kind of includes a lot more personal stuff, like personal bites. And that's not to say like his previous albums never really included that type of stuff, but like this album was like really heavily about a lot of that stuff, like songs like Reputation, Lemon Tree. He obviously has a song called A Love-Hate Letter to Alcohol on there, so it's a lot more personal stuff. So I can see that, being on hiatus, he's talking about, I think Dom, like similar to Denzel Curry. Remember I was telling you how his album, it was about like from like, I think it was like 2018 till like now, all the stuff he went through, like seeing as how Post Malone has this 3-year break between his albums, he was probably doing something similar where, he was just discussing how he felt, especially during the pandemic and all that. And yet, it maybe like how Gio's saying, a lot of these people kind of maybe during the pandemic found joy in their reclusiveness, not right. Having to constantly keep up with what the music industry demands of you, with like the touring and like the busy schedules, the constant traveling, having to put up this image on social media. They found joy in not having to portray all that no more. And so like how Gio was saying with Post, maybe it was like, kind of like what he talks about in his album. Because I think it was like what did I hear from him? It was like this album was more so going back to what he enjoyed rather than, just making what like, his label wanted him to make, which we see with a lot of artists where they get confined to that box of having to make stuff for the labels and stuff rather than what their pure enjoyment is from.
Right.
So maybe, that's why, and I think we see that with a lot of these type of albums where it's like, they don't do as well sales-wise, but, the artist doesn't care. And I think that's why they don't put out as much promotion, because it's not about the promotion and making the money. It's about putting out a product that they enjoy, whether it makes like a large amount of money or not,
I think it's also... This is just an assumption, but it's kind of like they're not promoting these albums because, like you said, I haven't heard the album yet, but according to you guys, it's a very personal album. So it's kind of like he's not promoting it so that people who are looking for like his older work, like maybe his like 2018, 2019, like that kind of his music, they wouldn't, like those people wouldn't like check it out and then go on social media and criticize it. But it's kind of like for the people who are interested and willing to listen to it, it's for them and not for like the general public kind of thing.
I get that, especially in the sense of, I'll compare it to what can I compare? I'll compare it to wrestling real quick. So in wrestling, there's the casual crowd and the hardcore fan base. The hardcore ones are the ones that are always watching, tuning in and all that. And the casual people are just the ones that are like, I'll tune in whenever. it's the same thing with sports. There's casual fans and there's hardcore fans that support their teams and stuff. And so I think it's similar with artists where it's like they have their hardcore fan base, which, like with Post, when he was probably releasing his album, he already knew his hardcore fan base was going to be listening to this album. But as far as the casual one goes, I mean, there's a lot of songs on here that, sound like they can be on the radio, especially because of the overall sound of a lot of the songs. But, he probably wasn't, as like Gio was saying, he probably wasn't directing it towards that crowd, and in all honesty, maybe this album wasn't even directed towards a certain crowd. Like I said, he was probably just doing it for the sake of himself.
Yeah, that would make some sense.
What are your thoughts, though?
Personally, in terms of the album and stuff like that, he does go pretty deep into his personal life and what he's been going through and such as of that. But I think for this album, personally, in terms of like rating the album itself, it was a bit odd. Jack, do you think? Okay, I understand the messages that was portrayed, but do you think the execution of such messages? Do you think it was good, perfect, bad? What do you think?
I think it was like middle, like, it's the overall album. I think it was maybe like middle of the road, where it, some of these songs weren't the best execution that I've heard from Post Malone, and other ones, I found were really good,
Right.
Because, like, to me, like I said, like the intro track and Lemon Tree are probably like, to me, like his best executions of the points he's trying to get across,
Right.
Like, those are tracks where it's like, I think everything ties into it, where, the overall sound, the message, and all that kind of intertwined perfectly. But then there's like other songs where, I don't know, they don't click as well, if that makes sense,
Right. Okay. Yeah. Personally, yeah, I feel like we're on the same page here. Some songs didn't go right well with me because I'll be honest. Compared to like Kendrick Lamar's songs and Tyler the Creator songs, there's an overarching message across the entire album from start to finish, in which a whole story is displayed. But among Post's album, it didn't. How would you say? I would like to assume there was a message across, from start to finish,
but it wasn't as cohesive.
Exactly, it wasn't as cohesive because there was like some nice, summer bops that sounded nice, but then like in what was the name of the song? With the guitar, was the new sound recording from 2020? I think that what it was.
Mm-hmm.
It just sounded off per se, because I listened to the deluxe album, which had 2 songs after that one, and so. I how would you say it? It just didn't feel right per se. It felt odd.
Yeah, I get.
Not only that,
I get. You continue.
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't know. It felt weird per se. And personally, I'm gonna get a bit of flack for this, but I personally did not like Lemon Tree. People are gonna hate me for that, but I did not like Lemon Tree at all. I understand the message, I completely understand the message, but it's people, the bars, or I guess the verse or the lyrics, some people got an apple, some people got a tangerine. How did he come up with that in 3 years?
I don't know.
Some people might like that. I'm sorry.
I get what you're saying, because like the imagery is supposed to be about like the phrase, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, and he's trying to say like he's not gonna take what life gives him and say he's gonna try and make better for himself. But yeah, some parts of it you're just like, I don't know if that, like, again, I don't know if that's his best work, Yeah,
it was. I don't know. I did not like it.
But
I'll be honest.
look at the next line though. Looking around and all I see is people happy with what they're given. Like I get, like the first two lines are kind of weird, but like he kind of like finalizes the point of why he said it in the next line.
Right. No, I understand that, but it's just how would you say it? It could have been executed better, in my opinion. It probably is perfect to some people, but personally, I don't know why we had to start off like that. I like how he does tie it all up together, but it's just I don't know. I don't know.
And real quick, going back to Dom's point and my point about the cohesion, he talks about a lot of stuff on this album, but compare it to let's go back real quick, Dom. Let's compare it to the Denzel Curry album. He talked about a ton of stuff on there, but I think the album flowed better from topic to topic and stuff. Whereas, for example, on Lemon Tree, we're talking about, he's talking about not being especially content with his life compared to seeing everyone else happy with theirs. He goes from that song to Wrapped Around Your Finger, which is like I guess you would call it like, not necessarily a heartbreak song, but he's talking about, essentially missing this girl and, how he was always so infatuated with her to the point, like the symbolism, he was wrapped around her finger, he would basically do anything for her. And then that turns into, I guess, a love song featuring Doja Cat, and then it turns into a sad song featuring Gunna and stuff. It's like the flow doesn't really match, especially when you hear the songs. It's like it doesn't match from song after song after song. Like, a lot of albums have really good transitions, like the Dawn FM one, where the songs seamlessly slide into one another. Compared to this one, I wouldn't really say it does that all too well, because it's just abruptly going from one song to the next, and same thing, topic to topic, it kind of just goes abruptly from one to another. It doesn't really have such a cohesiveness,
Right.
Especially when you compare it again to his previous works. I think Beer Bongs and Bentley went really well in cohesion from track to track, not necessarily track to track, because there was somewhere it's just okay, we're going from this to this out of nowhere, but there's a good run on that album where it's just the songs seamlessly slide in from one another. And same thing with Hollywood Dream. But yeah, I get Dom's point here about the cohesiveness probably isn't exactly the best with the songs. I don't know if that's just me though.
I think personally, the cohesion, it didn't sit right with me. I know there was transitions between Reputation, Cooped Up, Lemon Tree, and I think Wrapped Around Your Finger. I'm not sure if it continues on transitioning within the album, like the sound and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure afterwards it just abruptly changes to the next song and then the next song and the next song. But the messages that were just displayed, because we go from a sad song from I Cannot Be to Insane, which is I guess him admitting his how would you say, his vices, right? His vices, talking about him going crazy, in him wanting money, the house, what else? He talked about strippers, I think, as well, and stuff like that, and just how would you say it? The transition is off. Personally, the transition is completely off, going from a sad song to then the Insane, and then going to Love Hate Letter to Alcohol. It's just I don't know. It just didn't feel right with me. I'll be honest with you. And then not only that, but having new recording, the new recording song, I think it talked about suicide. I think, and to end off the album like that. For those who do not hear the deluxe version, or to those as well also hearing the deluxe version, then hearing Waiting for Never and then Hateful at the end, it just feels completely off, and I just don't understand the main message that Post Malone is trying to portray, because it goes sad and it goes happy at some point, just being an overall roller coaster of emotions. I just don't. I'm assuming it is an overall, I guess, standpoint of the crazy, I guess, life that Post Malone is living at the moment, and that it's complete chaos. But he's still trying to find the clarity in that chaos, per se, in trying to display it as in terms of an album for everyone else to hear. And yeah. I'm assuming, yeah.
I think the argument could be made for what you just said.
Yeah, I was gonna say
if he goes from what you're saying, if the songs go from like upbeat to like kind of sad, and then it just keeps going like that, I don't know. That kind of sounds like bipolar to me. So that could be like the hidden message of the album that he's trying to like this like demonstrate how he feels and how it's not like a constant thing. Like some days he feels happy, some days he feels sad. That could be the hidden message, and that could be, I guess, like successfully defended if you were to make the argument for it.
Yeah, I find it real funny that this entire time Dom's talking about he doesn't get the message, and then he comes out with that, and like that really does seem like it seems probable. I probably don't think that's the intention behind the album of like, you know, just this roller coaster of emotions seeing like the track. Because like Dom said, it's weird to go from, you know, Dom, the last two songs, One Right Now to New Recording. It's really odd to go from that to that, you know. And I don't know, I kind of agree with Dom though. Like it is really like what he was just saying right now, that could like really very well be like the message of it all, is like just this display of a roller coaster of emotions and all that. But the argument I'll have for that is just that if that's like the true intention, kind of going back to what we were saying, I don't know if it was executed the best. Because I mean, if that's the intention, then I mean, it's not like he did it terribly. Like it's still pretty, like if that's the intention, then okay, it makes sense. The sporadic nature of this album, going from song to song, like how I was saying, where the things don't line up as well. But at the same time, I just don't know if it's the best, especially because I don't know, when it comes to me, it's like I want at least, like I can appreciate albums like that, but kind of like the main message we've been saying, it still needs a little bit of cohesion to kind of understand that like meaning of going like sporadically displaying, you know, I guess if you would call it the inner thoughts of Post Malone's mind throughout these past couple years.
Interesting.
I don't know. For some reason, I'm leaning towards thinking that it was purposely arranged this way, because I don't know much about like how the industry works, like in the Western side of things, but I'm pretty sure they spend hours like arranging the songs in the album to like make it make sense, or like to present it in the best possible way. And for them to like kind of release it like this, and for people to like so obviously notice how the lack of cohesion, I don't know, it just kind of like it was done on purpose so it could be seen this way.
Interesting. Well, got about 35 seconds left. Dom, what are your final ratings for the album?
Personally, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. I would give it like a 5, or I'll give it a 6 because there were some nice songs in there. But it's just cohesion. Cohesion is my main problem. I'll give it a 6.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree and say a 6 as well. And with that being said, thank you all for joining us for another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. As always, if it exists, we have an opinion on it. Thank you, and we'll catch y'all in the next episode.